to look at. And the reason why is because we're not going to get an actual value. We're going to get an expression. So we're not going to get like a number for our answer. But we're going to do the exact same thing that we did. Remember that range, to evaluate for the inverse sign, the main important thing was you need to make sure we determine it between the correct range. So Lauren, since you were not here, you need to make sure that you remember that the range for the sine function is between negative pi halves and pi halves, just like it was for tangent. All right? So that means my triangle, when I'm going to evaluate for the inverse, has to be between the fourth and the first quadrant. All right? So when I draw my triangle, I'm going to make sure it's created between these two. So we have the sine of 2x. Well, what even exactly, how are you going to graph a sine of 2x? Or what exactly does even that mean? Well, if we look at sine 2x, that just means that, remember, sine, the sine of a function, or sine of an angle, represents the opposite over the hypotenuse. So for here, we know that the opposite side is going to be 2x, and we know that the hypotenuse is going to be 1. Right? So now in this case, we don't really know if my sine could be positive, really, or it could be negative. It's not really going to change. All we need to know is make sure that the cosine will be positive. So it really doesn't matter how I'm going to draw my triangle in this problem. I'll just draw it like here, 1, 2x, and then I don't know what my adjacent side is, which I'll call A, which would be my other leg. So now what I need to do is evaluate for this leg. So remember, we said the leg had to be positive, and I'll show you guys in a second how we represent that. So what we're going to have is, first we use this information now to find our leg. So we're going to have a squared plus 2x squared equals 1 squared. We're now, 2x squared. Make sure you put it in parentheses, because you have a squared equals 4x squared equal to 1 plus. Then I'll subtract 4x squared on both sides. So I get a squared equals 1 minus 4x squared. Then square root both sides. A equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. However, what did we say that cosine had to be? What did this leg have to be? It has to be positive, right? Because if it's negative, if cosine is negative, I'll be outside of the function. So do you guys see how now we're only going to use that positive value? So we get rid of the negative. Yes, Caitlin? Question? Yes, it is. But yeah, it has the different, yep. And you can't, remember another big thing that students want to do is try to square root both of them inside. You can't split them up with that. So you're just going to keep it like this. So this is going to be our answer. But then it's telling us to find the cosine. So the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine is just going to be, of our theta, is going to equal square root of 1 minus 4x squared all over 1. So our final answer is the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. Got it? Any other questions? No? No preguntas? The main important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is getting it between our ranges. All right? We have to make sure that we create